It's the SDG Podcast. Before we get started, you can check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com/podcast or find us on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Solution Design Group. All right, we're back with another podcast. Welcome, everybody. With us today, we've got Peter Lawrence.
Hi there.
We have Tom Cross joining us again.
Great to be here.
And Allison Lorenzo is back for another podcast.
Good to be back.
Say hi. And I'm Kyle Bacher. And today we're going to talk about guardrails, which is guidelines, governance, that kind of thing. So the importance of guardrails. I heard someone, this is not my original thing, but someone said, I don't know who said it, that guardrails are like, and governance is the road signs and rules and whatnot, but it's not telling people how to drive or where to go necessarily.
I like that.
Yeah. So I generally think rules suck. Would y'all agree with that?
Every time I want to break the rules, yes, they suck. Which happens to be daily. So,
Peter, you're a developer
I am
of software applications and whatnot.
Yep.
Allison is in user experience and UI UX and user research and all of that stuff. And Tom, you're kind of a hybrid of some different things.
I do it all, but my background is specifically in development and architecture. Yeah.
Okay. And my background is in SharePoint, Microsoft 365, intranets, extranets, sites, that kind of stuff, implementations. And now I'm doing tech support for the company. So we all have areas, I think, where we work on systems that require guardrails and require some guidance and things like that. So, Allison, since you deal on the front end with users, what kind of guardrails and guidelines do you come up with for the applications that you put the face on and all of that stuff?
Yeah. I guess I kind of think of two different ways. One way is just to be very strategic in the very beginning when you're planning a project and its user interface in terms of like, how could this go as bad as possible? Like, I think a former colleague of mine called it like pain storming. You're supposed to brainstorm all the way this product could bring pain to the world. Like, what sort of, like, if you put yourself into a villain's shoes, what are the things that you would try to do with, whatever your, whatever data you're providing in this project, whatever this tool can do. And at OSN recently, I don't know if any of you attended Megan Taylor's talk. She's from Riot Games, and she was talking about how to not feed the trolls, because she works for, these massive video games where there's a lot of trolls out there, and they'll use any feature of the game possible to wreak havoc and just be bad actors. So she was also talking about thinking ahead. What will the trolls do with this new thing, and how can we prevent it from being used like that? So I think that's one very intentional thing you can do from the very beginning, is just assume the worst of people, just to, not because you don't have faith in humanity, but just to cover your bases.
I think I've done a lot of brainstorming with other people, and they've done a lot of painstorming with me.
It's fun time.
I always try to painstorm Kyle's documents and signups to see how much trouble I can get into.
I find that
because I know they'll fix it for
QA,
me if I break it.
Yeah, the QA will reveal some painstorming, and you can put a negative number in here and actually make more money on the PTO. Okay. Yeah, that's not good. Got to fix that. It won't take a 50,000 character line of text. That's weird. So, Tom, what have you run into? Have you been in a position where you've had to take on the arduous task of keeping people, saving people from themselves?
I think the role I am in primarily, and I really liked your metaphor about the signs on the road versus driving the car. I have more experience being on a product team, and maybe being a little closer to that team that is trying to add value through some primary objective, then has to cooperate with all of these different governance bodies. And so for me, when I think about governance, I think about hoping that I can help an organization find a model that is better than what we have typically had in IT, which is the governance bodies exist independently of the projects or product teams, and the product team chases them, right? That the product team has 8 approvals they need to get, and none of those 8 bodies are on your team, right? So they all have different weekly meeting schedules, all have different rules of engagement.
Mm,
And I think that what we've seen with Agile, with the product model, is kind of some new patterns of engagement with with governance.
yeah.
And that's what I like to see. Again, federated models are great. Platform models are great. But I think that there is more complexity that comes with those better models that organizations kind of need to feel their way through. The easiest thing is to just say, well, go chase down security, go chase down data
Mm,
retention, go chase down
yeah.
network on your own, versus saying, well, wait a minute, maybe it's the driver of the car who we should be focused on their productivity, and how do we invert those teams so that they are really kind of helping that driver get to the best outcome instead of just, again, taking this inefficient, circuitous, slow, whatever it is, path.
Or putting up roadblocks until they get all the signage created and
Right,
that could possibly exist
right.
and put that down the road for you. Yeah, when we first talked about this, Kyle, I was thinking like, oh yeah, what's the first thing I do as a programmer? Well, the first thing I do is I create a login screen, right? And with that login, I know who you are, so I know what you're supposed to have, so I can put up some guardrails. So, I mean, you would hate it if everybody had admin access to everything at SDG, right? Like that would be
They wouldn't for long,
that would,
unless they got to me first and took away my admin access.
right. Like your default user doesn't start with admin access and then you take it away if they abuse it. It's more of a you have to earn that admin privilege to do something that and then you get to have it taken away as soon as possible, right?
Yeah. Well, that's the ideal, but I work with developers that need to install tools and do things on their systems, and so
Oh,
I
I'm not talking about their PCs. I'm talking about the big cloud and everything
oh
else.
yeah, no, it's basic access, and because I want to prevent them from creating more problems. It's like
Are you putting up
uh,
guardrails?
it's guardrails. It's like when something bad happens, is it the user's fault, or is it the way it's structured and admin and lack of guardrails? And it's like, well, you gave them the ability to do this. You gave them
Right.
the keys to the kingdom, and then they got in and they did something that you didn't like. And it's like, well, is that their fault necessarily? Or is it better if you give them what they need and what they need to do and what they're allowed to do and can do, and then you keep them out of the things that it's not their job, it's not their thing to do, not their row to hoe, as they would say. Um, security is tough, and people don't always understand like how all the security works. And so when they give people access to a site they own, it's like we're all owners now. We're all admins of something. So it's like, what are the guardrails? Did you just make everybody an owner to your Microsoft team? And, did you just make or a SharePoint site and now they uploaded a file so big it's 2 terabytes, and now there's no more space and people are getting in trouble. And
that sounds like experience talking.
Yeah. Well, when you have a giant PowerPoint that has everything embedded in it,
yeah,
because you can't run it on the internet,
right?
Because you're in Côte d'Ivoire, out at a farm, where they grow something, and you need to provide education about sustainability and things like that. Yeah, and then you got a bunch of people working on this file, and it's huge, and you have versioning turned on, and it's unlimited. Then you get a call in about 10 minutes from the admin saying, yeah, you've used up all your space, so you better clean it up. Then you go and set it to 5 versions or 3 that are allowed. And that's how far back it will go. And then you're not because a version is a full-blown copy of the document.
Full copy. Heck yeah.
Yeah. So that's one thing. Just how are you going to set up versioning?
Right.
Like, how are you going to, there's all these considerations, and you can't expect a user to know about versioning in SharePoint. It's actually a big ask, because it's something they'll deal with once in a lifetime. Like, they don't have to worry about it most of the time. Most people don't run into it. Like, let's have a day training of 1,000 people to talk about something you're going to use once every 2 years.
Here's the toggle switch, and here's the value.
All right. Click here. There's a drop down that's 8 feet long, and then I'll slide out. And yeah. So I think of governance in terms of like system configuration and that kind of stuff, where the user's not going to really see it. They're going to drive over the pothole. They don't really care if there's a sewer down there and what's going on. They're going to drive by fire hydrants, but they don't ever need to hook up a hose to them. Like, there's just things that, you're going to have guardrails, you're going to have exit ramps that go up a hill for the trucks when they have no brakes. It's all that kind of stuff. I could take this metaphor and run with it all day. So
highway safety certainly has a lot of guardrail metaphors and actual things, right?
Yeah. Now, rules, draconian rules, and are bad, and they're worse if you don't enforce them. You should never make a rule you're not going to enforce. That's my,
that's your rule.
Why have it then?
Right.
And then you're just adding to the list of things and you got to okay, these are the rules. You can't do this. If you do this, that's bad. And then it happens and you're like, doesn't matter. Well, so-and-so did it. Why can't I do it? So consistent, but it's governance they can't see is, I think, the best kind, where it's not creating friction. They're not worried about it. They expect it. They expect to have a speed limit. They don't always like it because it's 20 miles an hour on every road in St. Louis Park now, or wherever. Who made that rule?
20?
Yeah. You know how slow 20 miles an hour is?
Sadly, I do.
Yeah, slow.
I think people can run faster than 20 miles an hour. I think top speed for a human is like 24.
All right. So not to complain about speeding or whatever. Maybe we take it back to last week's discussion, where we talked about, some of the policies that are in place that make, things harder to get. Tom, do you ever deal with, like, I need access, I need this software, I have to jump through this hoop to get it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that some of that is even kind of natural. You talked about least privilege, right, as just a
Right.
guiding concept that's very common across any sort of requisitioning system, as well as thinking about user roles as well. And yeah, I think that it's been fine working in environments where the turnaround on those requests is rapid enough, right? So if you're in a cloud environment and you have an expectation that software teams are going to be able to experiment with new cloud technologies that are coming out all the time,
Right.
then often what will happen is through least privilege, your developers don't have access to that new technology, right? That you have essentially only greenlit what's available.
What
Um,
existed yesterday.
yeah, that's right. So I think the turnaround on that, especially in cases where the technology exists, it is in use, and developers are now just doing something new, and there's some role that is missing. I think as long as that's kind of a we can fix this same day, there's someone I can go to and they have bandwidth and that's their job, that's great. We've also seen environments where that's like a 2 week turn, right? Like file a ticket and pray. And that can be
Yeah,
pretty dysfunctional pretty fast.
for sure, for sure. Allison, I don't like, to me, I pictured the designer world as giant monitors and super cool Macs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, do you ever face that sort of ticket avalanche to try to get things, or you just bring your own
Yeah.
paintbrushes and tools and away you go?
More the second one. I feel like I'm on the side where, I don't need a lot of, I don't have my own series of data requirements very often, and I'm not like the person to solve someone's problem if they can't get the data. But I think where design can come in, first of all, I mean, part of data governance, right, is making sure that the data is like high quality and accurate and
Mm,
can't be mishandled or misinterpreted. And I'm just thinking to a recent project that I've been on where there was a lot of pressure to allow for like an export option. We had this giant report in the UI, and people really wanted to be able to print it out or to export it to Excel so they could save it off on their own machine and pass it around, whatever. And I mean, that was a real challenge for us as, a team and me as a designers, because this is something that would theoretically enhance user satisfaction. They are being very clear, and I could imagine, ergonomically, it might be nicer to have this pile of paper on your desk for what they were doing at the time.
right, right.
But there is a trade-off there, and we have to be very real about that. And we have to look into what the company is comfortable with in terms of, do they have a paper shredding policy that we need to make sure these people understand? Do they have,
Mm,
um, you know, if they're, let's say, like a healthcare organization, there could be very serious legal
right,
ramifications
right.
if those papers aren't handled correctly. So that does come into play every once in a while for UI. And, something that Kyle mentioned is, good data governance should feel invisible, like you don't even notice it. And you hear that a lot about good design too. Like when you're using an application that has a really good UI, you don't even notice like
Right.
how it's designed, really. It feels invisible. It feels so natural that you can just go. And I think UI can help make that good data governance feel invisible, feel like I don't have to jump through any hurdles. I don't have any roadblocks. I can get exactly what I need at the time I need it, um, without getting any more than what you do actually need or any less than what you need.
You know, at SharePoint, we had a lot of governance discussions and creation of a giant governance document and all that kind of stuff. And, it's just too much. Something like that's going to sit on the shelf, collect dust, and no one's going to read it. And if they read it, they're not going to remember it. They don't care about a lot of it. And so it's like, well, maybe the exercise of just coming up with it and defining it and all of that, and then, implementing your design and structure and security based on it. There's not zero value to it. It's just, what are you expecting that to do? Like, that's not doing the job for you, or something that you can rely on. One thing about that we used to tell people is, look, emailing, printing, all these kind of things is a point in time snapshot of the data. So the horror story is, so let's say you're in sales and you sell 1 million widgets and you're using the price sheet that you downloaded and you have on your system from 2 weeks ago. Well, they had made a mistake in one of the rates, and so they had to change it. So they updated that document, and now the widget costs $1 more on 1 million widgets, and you quoted them the old price, and you got to stick by it, and you cost the company $1 million. Things like that. Accuracy is really important, and preventing rework and things like that. So when it comes to like handling documents and stuff, it's like, this is where they live. They live in one spot. There's one copy. You go there. If you're not the owner, you can't edit it, change it, whatever. So the only person that can update that is the person that's supposed to. And so things like that. And you can design the system that way, and the rules that way. And so if somebody sends you something, you can say, hey, that I got the thing. You don't happen to have a link to it, do you? Can you send me the link? Because the link is always going to grab the thing that's the latest, greatest, best, whatever. So like Honor HQ, that's the latest, greatest version of everything we have on our intranet. At least it's supposed to be. Nothing gets drafted on the HQ. Sites, text on sites, on site pages, that changes and gets updated. But again, that's where all the final versions live.
Right.
So something like that is governance. And that's something people don't see. That behind the scenes, that was a deliberate effort to do that. Naming conventions. It's like, why are we doing naming conventions? Well, these are date-specific things that happened. So we want them in order of the date, which means that we got to sort it by the date, and we're using the file name. And the file name is sorted alphanumerically, not alphabetically. And so putting the date first is going to give you that, and having the date in a specific format. Those are all rules. Well, who cares about that on an intranet? The people that own the content. So you have a very small people that need to know the rules. And I think that kind of approach is good, to kind of take that source of truth approach for things versus, a team works on stuff and they're all working on the same document. Having that ability to edit as a team in real time is a huge win. But there's people that still send 12 copies out for people to update, make changes to. And then what? Someone's got to get all those back and incorporate all the changes from all 12. Like, it's madness.
No, I usually I wave my hand to say that I was guilty party, and a lot of times it's just if I want to take something from my personal OneDrive and throw it out there to people to look at and not necessarily edit. If they need to edit it, then we're going to start doing sharing and links and fun things like that.
Yeah.
But and that, it's funny that you have your own personal governance on your own personal documents where you don't always like, oh, I don't think Tom needs to edit this document. He can view it, but he can't make changes. And Allison can edit this because she needs to edit this and make changes. So, but I don't think of it as governance or anything like that. I just think of, what do I want them to do?
Well, there's things that get people in trouble and they don't know it's going to get them in trouble necessarily. You have a confidential document that someone needs to see. It's in SharePoint. You're going to share a link to it. So use the link share feature. And the default is that anybody with this link that's in our company can read it.
Yeah.
And so I send the link to Tom, and Tom's like, well, this is really important. I want to send this to Allison. So Tom is making a decision of who should have access because he sends it to Allison. Well, she thinks her whole team should see it, and so on and so on. And now, and then somebody outside the company, well, I'll download a copy for you and send it to you because I don't know that we didn't want people to know this stuff. So that's another thing is, what's the default that you set for your site?
Right.
It's people that already have access, or it's people that I specify, and we're going to make this other choice, not the default. Like, there's little things you can do with the system that make vast improvements, and they might not solve every scenario. But it would be rare that something bad would happen. Now, Tom, what role do you play in developing sort of the guardrails and stuff on your different projects?
Well, again, it's kind of interesting how the term can even be a little overloaded, right? So to some degree, if we're talking about governance in terms of necessary team practices to keep the work working well, or talking about user roles, I think that's often in the product team bailiwick. That's a function of good architectural decisions, good design decisions. You mentioned, Kyle, just talking about like, don't put this data in multiple places. Don't repeat yourself is a developer mantra that applies really in sort of a multifaceted way across your practice. It's not just don't copy code. It's don't have the same version of data in multiple places, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's good internal practices, and I think there's also things that we tend to say there's a level of expertise that warrants its own function, right? Or there's Sarbanes-Oxley that says that you need to have a developer operational divide, right? So again, some of it kind of folds into your practice, and some of it by expertise, by governance necessity itself, legal necessity, whatever, folds into what kind of naturally takes effect as these external organizations, right? So again, as someone on a product team, IT security is my partner much more often than IT security is embedded in my team. Even if they were embedded in my team, they would probably have a different background and a different set of expertise than I have.
For sure. Tom, you mentioned Sarbanes-Oxley, and it's one of those things that just kind of gets baked into you. Like PII and PHI, you kind of like, all right, this is the first thing we got to consider. Now we've considered it. Okay, moving on. And when it first comes out, you think the world has changed and gone crazy, but eventually you just get used to like, oh yeah, I can't have access to production because of Sarbanes-Oxley. So somebody else has to grant me permissions temporarily or do something else. And it's funny to think about like, well, that's a really good idea in general, but it's actually, no, it's the law. So we should really do that more than we do sometimes, for sure.
So Allison sent me a link to a Figma Fig Jam or something, and I clicked on it and it said I didn't have access to it.
Uh-oh.
So we should just open it up, remove all the security from Figma.
That's
There you
right.
go.
Yeah.
Should be fine. Yeah.
Did you
Only,
fix it?
Well, I think every Figma has a couple of different options, and I think I picked the one where you have to like put in a password, which I should have told you and I didn't, which is part of the problem. And the other one is you can open it, anyone with an email ending in solutiondesign.com can open it. But so you would have to be logged into a Figma account. But I mean that you're being a little bit like a joke, but this is maybe a good example of like someone at Figma had to design all those different options that I could have chosen from, and they
Right.
gave me a couple, and it's not just all or nothing. You can think of a lot of use cases where that sort of situation fits perfectly for what I need. I need the people in the committee, which, this Fig Jam was made for, to be able to access it without jumping through a million hoops. And I don't want to like have to specify the names of everyone in that committee because that's a chunk of people. But I also don't want it getting out to the public and then suddenly someone is saying something about, SDGs blank or blank committee has a very silly Fig Jam out there, and because it's just a rough draft and needs a lot more refinement before anything went out to the public.
It's
for sure.
a rough draft, then they don't know the context around it, and
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think we have adjusted to expect things that are wrapped in some kind of governance to just happen and the learning curve along the way. And it's like when I got that access denied, I didn't freak out, pull out my hair out, and I just was like, oh, I don't have access to it. And oh, okay, here. And it's done. We live in that world now.
We do.
Multi-factor authentication. Like it's a necessary evil because of unnecessary evil being out there.
Pretty much anytime I try to like share a link to something these days, like in Teams, I'll always add like, let me know if you can't access it. Like it's just, you never know at this point, and you just kind of, like you said, Kyle, it's expected. People are used to it.
Well, and something like that, like you're not logged in as that user to be able to go test it, to make sure you gave them the right access to it, and to do that every single time. No, the great user experience is I'm going to share this out, share, and we're all good. You hit a bump in the road once in a while. Oh, hey, okay, try it now. Yep, we're good. It's not bad. It doesn't hurt that much. And you get used to it, and it doesn't negatively affect your user experience anymore. Doesn't slow you down really that much at all. I mean, yeah, if you count the microseconds and look at our microscope, yeah, it costs a little bit of time, but a lot of things do. And I think that things like that, they're built in a system, with all these SaaS tools we have out there now. I think it's good to understand that they're going to do some governance, but you have to meet them halfway. They're going to make this thing ready for anybody to go in and use. And then you have rules in your head and ideas. You have to implement a lot of that stuff. You have to learn about it and do it. It's work to do all that stuff. It's annoying for an admin to have an admin account for admin stuff to sign in with, and then their regular account to sign in with. And oh, I can't do this admin thing. I'm with the wrong account. Okay. But it's the least access principle, and that's part of that is by least accessing it, because I have this other account I live in to do everything else. So I don't like the idea of using the term governance for users because it's kind of a foreboding, looming. It's too much like government, which no one likes.
Big brother.
Yeah. And I do not like Big Brother stuff. I have a Big Brother. Yeah. But guidelines, um, guardrails, things like that are not, you can talk around that, and like limitations and, security and stuff like that. Um, so you're building it in and kind of a,
Yeah.
validation, like your phone number needs to be in this format. You need to put the country code on here now because we're not the only people in the world. Um, little things like that. Like validation is a little bitty rule that lives in a field and keeps you from, making sure the data quality is there.
Right. Garbage in, garbage out.
Yep. Who is the guardrail? What's the guardrail for data quality?
I think it starts with
Um,
UX.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, if we're talking data input, like users providing data, there's a whole lot of thought that goes into forms, designing forms well. I mean, there's, the aesthetic aspect, but also being familiar with what data looks like in other countries. Kyle, like you mentioned, can we have the form reformat to support right to left? Can we support names that are much longer than English names tend to be? If we're talking, I mean, making selections like radio button selections and drop-down selections as inclusive as possible, so that people don't feel pigeonholed into a certain category that doesn't actually work for them. That's actually huge. And gosh knows there's a lot of like accessibility considerations too around forms, and making sure that you can tab through correctly and you don't get stuck in any of them, and you're not using placeholder text as a label because that disappears as soon as your cursor is in there and the screen readers don't know what to do with all that sort of stuff. So like data input from users, there's a whole lot of design that has to go into that, some of which around data quality, right? And, something that I'm working on right now is a form where you have a multi-line free text entry to explain a reason why you're submitting this form. And we have to do stuff like identify all of the special characters that they're not allowed to put in there because it could introduce some sort of vulnerability. And we have to to figure out if they do type one of those special characters, what do we do? From a sighted person's point of view, the nice thing to do would be to just not accept that character into the field. So they just keep
Yep.
typing and whatever, and we just leave that one out. But it turns out that's not great for anyone using like a screen reader who's blind, because they don't get the information that it wasn't accepted, unless we do some special magic. So that's just a very current, like right today thing that I'm dealing with.
I sat on a project across the aisle from a blind gentleman using a screen reader. And when it came time to look at accessibility, because we had to do accessibility, and I looked at it as like, what do you mean I got to do all this extra work? I got to do all these, check these things, and we got to make sure, like, really alt text? Are you kidding me? Really, we got to format things with headers and subheaders and make things like properly formatted. And the way the page is structured, the code behind the page. There's a lot of considerations, contrast for us older people that don't see so well. But I went and sat with, I don't remember his name because I'm a bad person. I watched him use that screen reader, and all of my complaints and bad feelings about accessibility went right out the window.
Right.
I was like, that is horrible. I'm like, how do you do this? And he's like, you learn how, you get used to it, and then you start just hearing the stuff that matters and kind of
Mhm.
sorting out the things that it's reading, because it'll read stuff, um, and it's just like code or something it picked up on, um, like alt text. Somebody puts a joke in there and it's like irrelevant, or
Yeah.
a bad, somebody's pissed off about having to do accessibility at all, and so they're like, I'll give you some alt text.
Wow, Kyle.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So anyway, but that was a great experience to have. Because it
It
made
really
me,
changes your perspective seeing it in person. Like, this
yeah,
is what these people are working with, and they,
yeah,
sometimes cannot do their job if we're not doing our due diligence to make these, screen readers, other accessible tools, like interpret these screens right. And it really, I think, transfers like the gravity of the situation when you're right next to that person at their elbow.
yeah. They have a job to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it honestly makes it easier and better for everyone.
Exactly.
It's
Oh,
not
for
just for
sure.
them, but it makes it so much better.
Yes.
For
Yes.
everyone, it makes it better to have alt text there and everything else
Yes.
in there. So
Because
yeah.
I'm almost
I,
reminded of like the door open buttons that we have, like that have
Yeah.
the wheelchair symbol on it. Yeah, they're for people who are in wheelchairs, but everyone uses them all the time. Like,
Right.
it's just
yeah,
like that.
your arms are full with stuff. You
Yeah,
got to hit it
right.
with your
I've got
elbow.
a broken arm. I've got a stroller. I've got a screaming kid in my arm. There's a million situations where you would want to use that button.
All right, who
Same
hasn't
thing for all
kicked
these
one
accessible
to turn
features.
it on? Who hasn't used their foot? Yeah,
A lot
that's
of
how
hip
I
checks
maintain my
from me,
flexibility and my kung fu skills.
Balance is important as you age.
That's right.
That's what they say.
Yeah,
I focus
you don't
on
want to
balance.
fall. It's not a good way to go.
Yeah, that's right.
So, I mean, this is such a huge topic and so hugely important to consider these things, because, like, which one of us wants any bad things to happen, or anyone to have a bad experience?
Mm-hmm.
No. But there are times when I want things my way right now,
Yeah.
and governance feels painful. But I've grown as a person to expect and accept that it's for the better. Just like alt text on fields, even though it's kind of a pain to put them there, it's still way better to have them there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have those discussions early.
It's way harder to add them all at the end.
Yeah. Well, and then going back, the farther you live with that thing, you're just kind of ignoring until it becomes the problem that needs to be solved, and then going back and correcting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. Or making decisions with bad information because you've got duplicates and things like that. Rework because you can't find something because it's in the wrong place. Like, how do you keep people putting things in the right place? That kind of stuff. When you start, like, I think we've all led or been a lead for a team or a group of people. Allison, is that correct?
I mean, it's very vague. So yeah, yes, I've led people.
Yeah,
before.
you've led a team.
Yeah.
I do a kind of an onboarding of this is how we want to operate as a team. We're going to store things here so that everybody can see them and see progress. And if you want like someone to kick in and help, then everybody in the team can do that. And you don't have to call and request, hey, how's that looking? And so you can just go look at it and say, oh, that looks pretty good. This is how we're going to communicate. We're going to do a Slack channel, and we want all the communication in there, unless it's got a bunch of information or it's formal communications that we want to save. Like, just kind of those guidelines you set down, which people can easily break. Um, and it's difficult to do that. Um, the way, Peter, the way code is going to be managed. How are
Yeah.
you going to, how are you going to fork? Are you going to, I don't know,
E-
all that
Everybody
stuff.
just checks stuff in. Just everybody has permissions. You just check it in. Even if it changes all of my day's work and deletes it all, just check it in. That's super fun as a group to have that as your default. No pull requests, no reviews, just put it in there. Nothing bad happens, except always. And I mean, that's sort of the governance, I call it the pattern of governance where you've got that startup mentality where everybody's go, 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 go. And we've all talked about it because it's a startup mentality. And then after that, you get into governance and things because things quickly go off the rails, the guardrails, pretty fast when you've got people doing whatever they want. And
And
so,
it's
yeah,
and Kyle, you mentioned being a lead. I think some of that is a leadership skill too, right? The managing within a team, right? You want to take advantage of that esprit de corps within your team, right? So having that conversation like, hey, let's talk about our team practice, right? Let's talk about how we want this team to work. Let's talk about things we need to do now so that if this team grows from 2 to 20,
right.
that things are still maintainable. I find that, again, I think agile and product teams, right? There's that within the team mentality, and I think there's a set um, of tools and conversations and working together that kind of go with let's keep our team functioning well. If you can build a team up to even 4 people and everybody has kind of mind melded on those practices, person five is going to find out real fast. They're going to get
Mhm.
they're gonna,
Right.
they're going to get a lot of feedback, right? If they break those team norms. So I think that's
Mhm.
kind of the spot you want to get to. Then there's the external to the team, and I think that's a different psychology. That's harder. I think kind of can I get my team functioning well? My team identity, my team purpose, my team practice, what is motivating the people on the team. A lot of it really just does get down to sort of people and psychology and leadership. I find when you're talking about getting a team to function well.
Yeah. And Tom, you mentioned that, and I've seen cases where people have looked from external into a team and said, I would really like that too. We should start doing some of
That's right.
those things that they're doing.
That's right.
So that's a well-defined, like, Scrum, Agile. It's like when you're following a playbook that's been developed, and they differ, but it's like you can carry that forward and refine it as you go, and it kind of will get better from project to project and team to team. And then you also have stories that help you sell the why of it. Hey, we want to do this because last time we didn't, and it cost us 2 weeks. That's all you need to say. Uh, so, Allison, um, what kind of governance is there in design? Like if you're working on a wireframe, like a thing like that between the team members, do you have any rules that you set, or
Like for the wireframe itself, who gets access
well,
to it?
things like that when you're
No
kind
log
of
colors.
a group design, band colors, like
Oh,
I don't know a
interesting.
Pla
lot about the
Plaids
design
and
world.
stripes together.
Well, I mean, that brings to mind design systems, right? Where some organizations have very strict uh, design systems which are aligned with their like brand norms. So you
Yeah.
can only use the logo in this way, and it has to be this far apart from anything else around it. And here are our colors in our palette, and you can use this one for that one and that one for this one. Um, some of those are made public, which is always kind of fun to see kind of how the sausage is being made in that way for other organizations. And some go even further and make their whole design system, which is um, bigger. So I'm thinking of like Material UI for Google, right? Or
Yeah.
Microsoft has their own design system they've made public. I think Atlassian has one, these really big corporations share it out as a kind of cool contribution to the community. And they even often have like Figma files that you can check out from the community for free to
Nice.
start playing with their design system and your own mock-ups and designs. And uh, it's kind of like open source in a way. It's really cool when people do that because you can learn from them, and it's taking a little bit of a risk. You have to have very high confidence in your own decisions and how you've laid things out when you make your stuff public like that. So on the other hand, if you consider a more strict data governance style to your design assets and your design decisions, your design library, that's all locked down, right? It's like I mentioned, Figma has all sorts of levels to their security.
access.
And
Yep.
yeah, you can do it like per file, but also as an organization, you can set boundaries on that sort of stuff. And so there is a level of governance to like the mock-ups and the design files themselves. And I'm talking a lot about Figma because that's what I've been using for the past whatever 8 years. It's kind of the main player in the space. But I mean, every day, it's kind of situations between team members, we typically say any designer should have full edit access to any file within the team. We then often share those designs with like developers and QAers and BAs on the team with the like read-only access.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another like seat tier that you have to pay for to give them access to the dev tools side of Figma, so they can copy the code that's generated in and out, but they can't edit the designs themselves. And then for anyone else, every seat has to be paid for, so you have to kind of like justify why you should get anything more than just view access.
I look at the Figma list of things we're paying for on a regular basis.
Yes,
This
I'm sure
person
you're
hasn't logged in for 2 years. Why are we paying? Yeah. But that's another level of governance, is that you guys are allowed to do stuff because you need to. And so I'm going to go in and just keep an eye on things. And so I'm the cost control, and Jared helps with that. I have, a few eyes on that. And then we'll have a call and do a cleanup and things like that. And that's something that I haven't told the design team that I'm watching, and I'm big brother. Yeah. Cause it's because I'm taking the burden off of them, and it's giving them permission to do what they need to do to work with whomever they need to work with.
Right.
And so I'll take the pain of having to go look at that, and I'll take the pain of knowing that we lost $100 a month for the last 3 months because the project ended and these people all had licenses still.
We spent $100 to just in case.
We covered, we just make sure. But it's going to happen, and you just take it in stride, and you're not going to yell at people for it. So it's like, what's the rule? What's the response? Why do you have it? How do you enforce it? And if you don't have an enforcement for us is removing old accounts that haven't been touched in a year or two. And there's so many areas, it's like, well, we want people to keep their stuff cleaned up. And so we're going to put a storage limit. And it's like, when you hit that limit, it's like, you better go clean up. or come back with a legit case. So you have to do this stuff. You have
No.
to.
Nobody comes to you, Kyle, and says, "Hey, remove my Figma account. I don't need it anymore." This week.
Yes. I've had, well, like, I might need this someday
Right.
access and accounts. And it's like,
gonna-
no, we're not living in dream world. We live in might.
Keep this over here. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Let's do some parting thoughts before we shut her down. We're getting to the end of the hour. And Tom.
Parting thoughts on governance. I've learned a lot in this conversation. I'm glad Allison was here. I'm a back-end developer at heart, so you know, it's it's all just data on a URL to me. But yeah, I think my main takeaway here, again, so often in technology, even just a simple word like governance seems no, I don't mean nebulous and overloaded. I've already said, but I mean it touches on so many elements of a practice, right? Personal, team, organizational dynamics. That's been good food for thought for me. I think that's my main takeaway.
Allison.
I think what's going to stick in my mind is, that I think, Peter, you said it, the earlier you think about this stuff, the better. Because if you're playing catch up, it's going to be a lot more painful. And I think that's true of a lot of things with projects. But
yeah,
I think this is a good thing to think about whenever you're starting a new project, at least getting people aligned early. So, if your team is starting small, like you said, you can get that alignment early and just spread it from there, instead of becoming the big brother and trying to pummel people into it afterwards. Pardon the metaphor.
Peter.
All right, I'm gonna go with the driving metaphor. Guardrails exist. You can drive between them, but if you just constantly drive from one guardrail to another, you're gonna have a wrecked car. So don't do that.
Yeah. Implementing these things that affect the users but are necessary, you're going to make their lives worse before it gets better. And they have to participate because they're using it. They are participating.
Right.
So you can't be a people pleaser all the time like I'd like to be. But having a kind of a business as usual standard, like, yeah, we just got to do this. Yeah, this is how it's done now. Instead of we're cracking down. Yeah, we're going to, take the bravado out of it and don't be bombastic about it. Just be matter of fact and be willing to explain why. And a story is really effective for that, especially when it's about $1 million loss because of one little mistake. No, and as you go, you're gonna feel your way along. You're gonna upfront as much as possible, but don't think that you're gonna do this once upfront and cover it all. This is as you go, and sometimes, most of the time, you got to feel pain before you're going to make a change. You don't know. Once you're, like you get your car broken into, it's like, well, I should have left the doors unlocked because they smashed my windows, and I've taken all the valuables out, or have insurance and glass coverage. But it's not important until you know it's important, until you feel it in your gut. So, but you can learn from the wisdom of others that have been through the pain first. So, with that, thank you for being here, Allison, Tom, Peter, Kyle, I guess.
Thanks, Kyle.
And until next time, I think we'll say goodbye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye. Solution Design Group is a digital product consultancy in Minneapolis. Check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com or look for us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.